Hello, good evening, and thank you for joining me as we begin our discussion of this new knowledge area, and that is Project Scope Management knowledge area. Previously, we rounded off our discussion on Project Integration Management knowledge area, where we consider the 6 processes of integration management, and today we are going to look at Scope Management knowledge area. Project scope management includes the processes required to ensure that the project includes all the work required and only the work required to complete the project successfully. So actually, managing scope has to do with defining what has to be included in the project work and what is not included in the project work. In the context of project scope management in PMBOK guide, it covers both product scope and project scope. Product scope refers to the features and functions that characterize a product, service, or result. Then project scope is the work performed to deliver a product, service, or result with the specified features and functions. So when we talk about project scope, sometimes it also includes product scope. Now we are going to consider the following 6 processes under the scope management knowledge area. And this is overview of the 6 processes. The first one is plan scope management, and this is a process of creating a scope management plan that documents how the project scope will be defined, validated, and controlled. And secondly, we have collect requirements, determining and documenting and managing stakeholder needs and requirements to meet the project objectives. The next process is define scope. Then we have create WBS, validate scope, control scope. These are the 6 processes under the scope management knowledge area. So let's start with the first one, and that is plan scope management. Plan scope management is simply have to do with creating the scope management plan, and the scope management plan documents how project scope will be defined, validated, and controlled. Now, the key benefit of this process is that it provides guidance and direction on how scope will be managed throughout the project. The scope management plan is actually a component of the project or program management plan and describes how scope will be defined, developed, monitored, controlled, and verified. The development of the scope management plan and the detailing of the project scope begins with the analysis of information contained in these items: the project charter, the latest approved subsidiary plans of the project management plan, and historical information contained in organizational process assets, any relevant enterprise environmental factors. So these are actually enterprise environmental factors. Scope management plan helps to reduce the risk of project scope creep. Project scope creep refers to adding additional functionalities to the scope without proper planning or without the proper process to follow. So let's now look at the key ITTOs of plan scope management, and we have project management plan as input, we have project charter as input, then we have enterprise environmental factors as input, as well as organizational process assets. The 2 tools and techniques used to plan scope management is they are expert judgment and meetings. And of course we have 2 outputs of the plan scope management, and they are the scope management plan, of course, that is one important output, and we have requirements management plan. We do need the project management plan for plan scope management, because the project management plan contains all other subsidiary plans of the project, and then this can influence the approach taken to plan scope management process and managing scope. We do need input to be the project charter, which provides the project context needed to plan scope management, providing high-level project description and product characteristics from the project statement of work. Remember, the project statement of work is one of the output of the developed project charter. Enterprise environmental factors is also an input to the to plan scope management, because it can influence some of the items in enterprise environmental factors that can influence plan scope management include organizational culture, infrastructure, personnel administration, and marketplace conditions. And of course, we have organizational process assets, policies and procedures, historical information, all these organizational process assets that can influence the plan scope management process. Let's now look at the tools and techniques, and we have just two of them: expert judgments and meetings. We've discussed expert judgment before now. It has to do with getting input from knowledgeable and experienced persons both within and outside the project. And of course, meetings are necessary in the planning of the scope management. We have planning meetings where the project manager, the sponsor, and other stakeholders sit together to discuss how the scope will be planned and controlled. The output of the plan scope management process is the scope management plan. The scope management plan documents how the scope will be defined, developed, monitored, controlled, and verified. The scope management plan is a major input to develop project management plan, and remember, the scope management plan is one of the subsidiary plans of the project management plan. Components of the scope management plan include the process for preparing a detailed project scope statement, process that enables the creation of the WBS from the detailed project scope statement, the process that establishes how the WBS will be maintained and approved. Remember, WBS stands for Work Breakdown Structure. A process that specifies how formal acceptance of completed project deliverables will be obtained is also a component of the project management plan. Process to control how requests for changes to detailed project scope statement will be processed. And of course, we also have requirements management plan. This is the second output of the plan scope management process, and requirement management plan is also a component of the project management plan and describes how requirements will be analyzed, documented, and managed. The face-to-face relationship strongly influences how requirements are managed, meaning that there are projects that span a number of phases. So the relationship between the phases influence how requirements will be managed. So all these are documented, all this how to, what to do, how to carry out is documented in the requirements management plan. Alright, so components of the requirement management plan include how requirements activities will be planned, tracked, and reported, configuration management activities, requirements prioritization process, product metrics that will be used and the rationale for using them, and traceability structure to reflect which requirement attribute will be captured on the traceability matrix. So this is how we are wrapping it up on the plan scope management. That's the first process under the project scope management knowledge area. I hope you've learned from this, and I would like to thank you very much for joining me. And as usual, I will take you back to the ITTO's page so that you get your head around the inputs, the tools and techniques, and the outputs of the plan scope management process. And please join me in my next presentation, as I'm going to start discussion on collect requirements.